Greetings everyone, this is Eldad Amara, back with another video. Right, I'm going to tell you a story, see if you can get the morals behind this story. There was a man and his name was George, and his wife's name was Mary. And between them, they had over 100 acres of land. And they had a mansion house which sat in the middle of this land. Anyway, George knew it was coming up to his wife's birthday. He knew it was coming up to his wife's birthday. So, he decided to get on his yacht and go and sail off and see if he could find her a present. George sailed over 3,000 miles, right, to an island, and then he dropped his anchor and got off the boat, or shall I say the yacht, and then he walked through some woods. As he was walking through the woods, he came across a little puppy dog. He then looked around to see if there was an owner for this dog. Right, he couldn't find an owner, so he decided to pick the dog up and walk back to his yacht and sail. And as he was sailing away, on the seashore was a female dog and a male dog with 4 puppies, and he sensed that the dog that he picked up, right, this was the parents of the dog. But instead of sailing back to shore, he decided to sail on. Anyway, George got back home and he had this dog wrapped up in a blanket, and he turned around and said to his wife, "I've got a present here for you." And she said, "What? You got a present for me? What is it?" And he said, "Come here and have a look." So she went over to him and she pulled back the blanket and she looked and said, "Oh my God, you got me a little puppy dog. Oh, where did you get him from?" And the husband said, "Don't worry about that. Just be thankful for the present." So she turned around and she says to him, "What shall we call the dog?" And the husband said, "It's up to you. It's up to you, love. What would you like to call the dog?" And she said, "You know what? I will call him Washington, after my father." So anyway, they named the dog Washington. They went out. They got the dog a collar with its name Washington on there, right, with his date of birth. They didn't know his true date of birth, but they put a date of birth on to his collar. Yeah. They started to take the dog out for walks. They gave the dog 3 meals a day. Stick with me on this story. Stick with me. Please, stay with me. Right? The dog had 3 meals a day. Morning, afternoon, and evening. This dog was so spoiled. It was so well looked after by the owners. Right? The dog used to go on holiday with the owners. The dog used to sleep in bed with the owners, or at the foot of the bed. Right? Stay with me. Anyway, as I said, the dog had 3 square meals a day. Right? This dog was pampered so much. Every time the dog done a trick, like put his paw up like that, high five, right, the owner would give it a treat. If the dog put both paws up in the air, it'd be high 10. Yeah? And the owner would give the dog a treat. Right? Anyway, the owners of this dog, when they used to take the dog out for a walk, they used to show it off like to other dog walkers. And you know what, the little puppy dog used to look at other dogs of his breed and used to think, "Is that my father? Is that my mother?" Right? And it started to play on his mind. Every time he went for a walk and he saw a dog that looked like him, he would look at the dog and he'd say, "Is that my mother? Is that my father?" Mary, George's wife, right, decided to have a child. So about a year after having this dog, they decided to have a child. So they had a boy child first, and then they had a girl child. Now the dog started to feel a little bit put out, right, because he was no longer the center of attention, as these kids took up the attention of the parents. This dog started to feel very lonely, and he started to think about his own family, his own parents. And then he remembered the walks through the parks thinking, is that my mother? Is that my father? Is that my brothers and sisters? Right? The owners decided that they would get another dog, yeah, for Washington, a female dog as a companion. Anyway, they got this dog, and they called the dog Betsy, after George's mother. Funny that, eh? How they naming their dogs after their parents. Stay with me. Anyway, Betsy, right, after about a year of being with the owners, she got pregnant. Yeah, she got pregnant by Washington, and she had 10 pups. The owners, after 6 weeks, decided to sell the pups. They took the dogs to an auction, and they sold the dogs at an auction. And Betsy, she wailed, and she cried, and she wailed, and she cried for the dogs. Yeah? She cried for the little puppy dogs. The owners started to get fed up of hearing Betsy at night howling and crying, right? But they put up with it. Anyway, she had a second litter of pups again about a year later, and this time she had 8 pups. And 6 weeks after she had the pups, the owners decided to sell the pups, took the pups to an auction and sold them. Betsy started to howl and wail and cry and howl and wail and cry for the pups. So the owners get fed up with this. They start to smack the dog. They start to hit the dog, right? And took the dog and put it in a room on its own and not feed it for days. Right? This made Washington very, very sad. Yeah? It made Washington feel very sad. Anyway, the owners decided that they were going to sell Betsy and keep Washington. Now, the conversation was overheard. The conversation was overheard by the 2 dogs, Betsy and Washington. So, they decided to make a plan. And the plan was to try to escape. Yeah? Leave home, escape, and find a new home. So one day, the owners left the kitchen window open, and the 2 dogs jumped through the kitchen window and ran off. And they ran into some woods. Now these 2 dogs, they were so domesticated, they were so tame, right? They didn't know how to fend for themselves, right? They didn't know how to hunt or anything, right? They weren't like their mothers and fathers before them who knew how to hunt and gather, right? And eat things. These 2 dogs were so tame. They couldn't fend for themselves, yeah? They went into the woods and they couldn't hunt for food. What they did was to just forage around eating bits of tree, plants and things like that. after a while, the two dogs became very emaciated and skinny, right? Then Betsy, she passed away. And Washington wouldn't leave her side. And he was there and he's howling and crying and howling. Betsy died because she didn't know how to survive in the wilderness. A short time after, with a broken heart and through starvation and being emaciated, Washington passed away also. So both dogs passed away. You know what? The owners, in that meantime, had gone out and they got themselves 2 replacement dogs. They didn't think anything at all about the dogs that they had lost. Life just moved on and they had 2 new dogs. Now you tell me, do you see the morals behind the story? If you do, please drop me a line and let me know what you think the moral behind the story is. And we'll come back to this in part 2. Alright? And I'll tell you what the moral behind the story is. But try and guess. Do you know of a similar type of condition that people or animals may have suffered? Does this relate to you or to anyone else that you can personally think of? The moral behind the story? This is Eldad Amara. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe and share.
They want humanity to be free. They want you and I down on our knees. They want humanity to be free. They want you and I down on our knees. The Quran, look alive, boy, under the sun. Life's all fun, man, worship the gun. Eric kill the firstborn. You gotta stay strong like a lion and sound. No one's meant to spine, send a man to around. The world's getting colder as the world's getting older. Look alive is what I told you. Great stool preaching, the vision mind in prison. The strong mind sees split from the system. Systematic plan to raise the first man. Do you understand? Political places and phases is where they wanna take us. We planned this for ages. Stages, check my rhyme, check the sages. Man is outrageous. Use your own inkling to see what they're thinking. Like a ship's only sinking, sinking. TV kills a mind, the body kills the head. Cause you do, as I said, they don't want the money, they're already getting paid. TV kills the mind, the body kills the head. Cause you do, as I said, they don't want the money, they're already getting paid. Don't get eye up the fear on the gun trade. Did you hear what I said? Big now get paid. Don't get eye up the fear on the gun trade. Did you hear what I said? Big now get paid. On the brink of destruction, African dysfunction, bad energy accumulates, cause an evil mind state. You will congregate, accumulate wealth through battery and old. Unclean mind blessed with stress, cause they invest rockets. Nobody can stop it. Modern Al Capone, what the planet for their own. In space a clone, we moan, but can't make it on our own. It's using for the phone. Satellite needs your own. Freedom's a myth, but sorry, parachute. I'm cool, fire cool. Watch what you eating, like the Garden of Eden. Food misleading, the sun for greeding. Kids getting more obese each season. Mind what you plan and eating. like Carmichael. Blow! World's gone at the push of a button. What's in your food like mutton? No more free hunting. Free hunting. Cover lines like Garvey said. I told my cousin before press a bomb.